Good afternoon and welcome to Ceres 2021 and our session on moving steel toward net zero emissions. The world will still need steel to make the windmills, buildings, and electric vehicles of a low carbon economy. But to earn its place in that low carbon future, industry leaders know they will have to slash greenhouse gas emissions. And the presentations we're going to hear today are perfect for the conference's theme, Transforming Tomorrow Today, because as we'll see, the future is now being built by some of America's steel industry leaders. On today's panel, Anne-Claire Howard, the new CEO of Responsible Steel, will map the technological road ahead and describe how a new product certification will grow the market for low emission steel. Then Richard Fruhoff, Senior Vice President for Strategy at US Steel, will tell us how an iconic American company has taken its first big steps to curbing emissions. First, we're going to turn to Anne-Claire. Welcome. To set the stage, please maybe give us help us understand how an industry responsible for 7% of global GHG emissions can move toward net zero by 2050.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. And it's a pleasure for me to be here to share some of my thoughts on this. You said it, Dan. You know, the critical thing is currently iron and steel accounts for about 7% of global emissions. And without any action, these emissions could represent more than 3 gigatons of CO2 by 2050. It's also, and we don't talk about it much, the second sector when it comes to energy consumption and is the largest industrial consumer of coal today. But as you said, it also has a massive role to play in mitigating climate change and the energy transition that we're going through. So I think it's this duality of steel's challenges that makes decarbonization of the steel sector so critical. But not just steel manufacturing itself, but the whole steel value chain has to come together to make this happen. So the challenge is very clear. We need steel in a low carbon economy, but steel is one of the largest CO2 emitters. So there are a number of technical solutions, and I'm going to caveat my response by saying very clearly that I am not a technology expert when it comes to steel manufacturing. But what I do want to stress is that there are different methods to reduce carbon emissions in steel, and they require, most of them, very long-term, significant investment, which is why one of the crucial factors in all of this is the role of the financial sector, but also governments through public procurement, buyers through responsible purchasing, and us as consumers, we need to push for more responsible production of steel. So the solutions, obviously, scrap-based EAF is the most effective solution. This has about 1/10 of the emissions of an iron ore blast furnace. And I'll let Richard tell you a whole lot more about this because that's his domain of expertise. But the challenge here is that most steel manufacturers don't just have an EAF furnace. They have numerous steel plants scattered around the globe. Few of them will actually be EAF. And even if they were, there simply isn't enough scrap available today to meet demand. Today, about 85% of steel is already recycled and reused, and that meets only about 30% of demand. So if we want to achieve our objectives, we have to support the other paths to decarbonization as well. So energy efficiency and improvements, reducing the amount of coke used in steelmaking is an obvious one. Displacing coke as a feedstock with natural gas or hydrogen. But obviously, as soon as we talk about hydrogen, the key thing is how is that hydrogen produced? And there are numerous ways of doing that, and they don't all automatically reduce your carbon footprint. The third one, and that's also a very expensive solution, is around capturing emissions for storage or for use. So there are a lot of solutions out there. I think the key point I want to make is they require significant investment. They're not cost effective yet, all of them. And obviously changing our entire industrial system will take time, and that's time that we haven't got, which is why we believe that reducing emissions, but most importantly, incentivizing and rewarding the companies that do commit to reductions is absolutely critical.
Thank you. That's a lot of information in a short set of comments. Anne Claire, this is your fifth day on the job, as I understand it, as CEO of Responsible Steel. Maybe you could give us just a quick sense of how this new product certification is going to support the market for cleaner steel production.
So I'll take a small step back first, and you know as well as I do that steel manufacturers and by extension their whole supply chain are being asked to improve their ESG performance, not just emissions, but the whole ESG spectrum. You know, it's driven by mining companies who want to reduce their scope 3 emissions, and we're seeing a lot of partnerships flourishing in that space. Buyers of steel obviously want product with a lower footprint from their suppliers, and society and governments, as well as the financial sector, are pushing for this. So we at Responsible Steel have a vision, which is maximizing steel's contribution to a sustainable society. And to do this, we want to increase responsible sourcing, responsible production, responsible use, and responsible recycling of steel. This is why we've developed with our multi-stakeholder membership an assurance system and a set of standards that will allow steel manufacturers to label their sites and their products as responsible steels. So we know, and I think we all need to acknowledge that like most standards, steel makers will have to do the heavy lifting when it comes to implementation. The investments, the changes required to improve their performance. But that's also why we don't just work with them, but also with their downstream customers to drive change. So in terms of what we actually do, currently we have a fully developed site standard, and there are a number of Responsible Steel members actually going through certification as we speak. It covers 12 principles of the ESG spectrum, one of which is greenhouse gas emissions. And I'll just set out briefly the requirements on that because they're important and they're very much in line with what we're trying to achieve. So first of all, setting medium and long-term emission reduction targets at the corporate level that are compatible with the goals of the Paris Agreement. Implementation of recommendations from TCFD, and obviously embedding climate risk and opportunities into your corporate strategy. So for steel specifically, and in the production of steel, we have emission reduction targets for the site. So that's a specific site target. You need to have a time-bound plan to achieve the targets, and you have to disclose your GHG emissions and intensity. We're also currently developing a product standard which will encompass both raw material sourcing as well as GHG emissions. But I think the key thing I really want to drive here is that we're technology neutral. So the standard is really designed to support responsible steelmaking for all production routes, because we recognize the next 30 years are going to be critical, and we're not going to have the necessary scrap to have a fully circular steel production cycle. So we do need to find ways to support all production routes.
Thank you so much. And we're so excited about Responsible Steel at Ceres that we've recently joined the organization as one of your NGO partners. So look forward to working together.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Rich, turning to you. U.S. Steel is I keep calling it an iconic American company. It's really an iconic global company, really important in the history of manufacturing in the United States. And so a turnaround at a company of this pedigree is no easy thing. And I'm love to hear how you are putting the rubber on the road, so to speak, in beginning this big transformation.
Well, thanks, Dan, and thanks to you and to Anne Claire. Listening to Anne Claire was very exciting what she described. So first, I'm happy to be here to talk about that. So, you know, at U.S. Steel, we've been busy. We've been doing a lot. So in 2019, November 2019, we announced a reduction goal for our greenhouse gas emissions intensity based on a 2018 baseline. We have a 20% target by the year 2030. So we've been working on that. As Anne Claire said, electric arc furnaces are really one of the ways to improve the emissions intensity of steel. So last fall, we started up our first electric arc furnace outside Birmingham, Alabama at our Fairfields works. And then just less than 2 months ago, we closed on a transaction to acquire Big River Steel in Osceola, Arkansas. Now, Big River Steel is, as far as we know, the first LEED certified steel mill in the world. It can produce about 3.2 million tons of steel with about 625 employees, so incredibly efficient. It is 2 electric arc furnaces. So as Anne Marie said, kind of the wave of the future, very technologically advanced, probably the most advanced steel mill in the country technologically. And as Anne Claire said, steel making at an electric arc furnace facility is all about the recycling. So at Big River Steel, they start with scrap steel, old cars, old appliances, rather than the iron and coke in the integrated route. Scrap steel is melted in an electric arc furnace. A big blast of electricity melts the steel, so there's no need for the coke to reduce the iron. And those electric arc furnaces are increasingly efficient. They've been around for decades. But what's really exciting about Big River Steel working with U.S. Steel, the conventional wisdom until recently is that electric arc furnaces couldn't make the most high-end advanced steels, the kinds that are used to lightweight vehicles to meet fuel efficiency standards, the kinds of steels that integrated mills had traditionally been the only makers of. Well, what we've shown over the past year is that we can make some of those most advanced Generation 3 high performance advanced high strength steels using scrap steel at Big River Steel. So that's just incredibly exciting. We're very excited about that. We've brought together our metallurgical expertise, our process expertise at U.S. Steel with the operational efficiencies at Big River. So doing that allows really a lot of opportunities to continue to supply the steels, as Anne Claire said, that society needs, but in a much more fuel efficient or energy efficient and lower carbon intensity process. So I think that's really, really exciting for the future, as Anne Claire said, of steelmaking. So with that, maybe I can show you, because I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, a message from our president and CEO, Dave Burritt, that will talk about the commitment we've made and the technology I've been talking about here to achieve these milestones.
As I think about the Ceres conference theme for this year, Transform Tomorrow Today, I naturally think about that word transformation, and that to really transform tomorrow, we first have to transform the way we think and work today. U.S. Steel has been on its own transformation journey over the past few years. We have always had the ability to innovate to meet new challenges. There have been a lot of them in our last 120 years. From peacetime, economic booms, to creating the steel that powered our country's defense, skyscrapers and ships, and the vehicles to transport us. Each time, we stepped up. Today is no different. As we face a global challenge to create a more sustainable future, and once again, U.S. Steel is up for it. We've been at work for some time creating new grades of steel, like our XG3 Generation 3 advanced high-strength steels that help automakers lightweight vehicles to increase fuel efficiency and lower emissions without losing the safety benefits of steel in the car and trucks we all drive. But we know that the urgency of the climate crisis requires more from all of us. So we've embarked on a strategy we call Best of Both, where we combine the best of integrated and mini-mill technology to create something new, steels that are best for our customers and best for our planet, because it allows us to produce steel in a more sustainable way. It won't be easy. Making steel is historically carbon intensive, but once produced, it is infinitely recyclable. So we're changing our portfolio of steelmaking technologies, adding the Big River Steel facility and its technologically advanced version of electric arc furnace technology, remelted and upgraded into the Generation 3 advanced high-strength steels developed by U.S. Steel, and is the first LEED certified steel mill in North America. We're also exploring ways to source power from greener and carbon-free sources. And as always, partnering with our customers to reimagine what steel can be and how that can make them successful. It's all part of an aggressive goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions intensity by 20% across our global footprint by 2030. As we execute on that goal, we know that more needs to be done for our customers and for the planet. Sure, we want to be the best at steelmaking, but we want to do it in the most sustainable way, with advanced high technology, but also with the creativity and commitment of our people, now producing an essential new product, sustainable steel. At U.S. Steel, we like to tell our customers that together, we can build anything. Today, the planet is that customer, and together, we can build a sustainable future. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Rich. Dave has given us a long-run view of where the company is headed. But the question is, how does a U.S. Steel customer, an automaker, for example, get started now to make sure the steel they use in a car or a truck has minimum climate impact?
Well, it's a really good question, Dan. I mean, first, we're not going to stop in 2030. We're going to keep progressing. We've been working on that 2030 goal. And we're going to continue to progress and push the boundaries of what can be done with electric arc furnace technology and steel making, along with our technological knowledge from decades and decades of integrated steel making. So we are going to continue to find ways to make the sustainable products that our customers want and their customers want, you, the consuming public, looking for sustainable steel products. So we think if we show the marketplace the ability to make those high quality, high performance steel products out of a scrap-based process like electric arc furnaces, then the demand will drive in our expected commitment. So with that, maybe I'll ask our Ken Jaycox, our Chief Commercial Officer. He's put together some materials, I think, to show how we're integrating sustainability into our customer relationships and our business model.
Thank you, Rich, and welcome everyone to today's session. Over the next 10 minutes, I'd like to invite you to the launch of U.S. Steel's first ever sustainable steel product line. This is an opportunity to turn pledges into actions and an open invitation for our customers to partner with United States Steel in a revolution that can begin right now. I'd now like to introduce you to our new line of sustainable steel, because steel that lasts for generations only matters if the planet does too.
This year marks U.S. Steel's 120th anniversary, and to celebrate the past, today we declare the arrival of the future. The combination of U.S. Steel and Big River Steel merges a century worth of deep consumer know-how with the most innovative, modern processes on the planet. Let's take a look at how this important acquisition helps U.S. Steel mark a new day for the steel industry.
Steel. It built an industry that built cities, that built prosperity. It pushed us to go higher, further, to do what had not been done before. Steel changed the world. And now the world is changing steel. Our industry has always risen to the challenge of an ever-evolving world and bent to the will of innovation. And now, with new challenges, come new advancements. Alloy that is lighter, stronger, cleaner, smarter, more sustainable. Not only in the materials we use, but in the way we produce them. It is why U.S. Steel has partnered with Big River Steel to create a new kind of steel. One that uses a fraction of the carbon emissions. It will build the world stronger while helping to sustain it. Collaborating with leaders in every sector, steel will bring life to products and services. New products, new advances that won't just change people's lives, they'll also change the planet.
taking responsibility for a better planet. We've all heard the talk about it. U.S. Steel is ready to do something about it. Sustainable steel innovation means that we've created a product for right now, helping U.S. Steel become a company that offers choice, helping our consumers and customers turn their pledges to protect the planet into actual action. As we put more sustainable steel solutions out into the world, we must also accept and embrace our collective responsibility to make it matter to people. Because it should matter. Little does the world know, steel is already the most recycled material on the planet. More recyclable than glass. More than plastic. This new line of steel provides an easily reused product that can be recycled infinitely. A product with such an impressive lifespan helps all of us lessen our impact on the planet. Green steel production uses less water, less energy. It lessens steel's carbon footprint up to 75% and lowers the negative human effect on the environment. Right now, U.S. Steel's Big River operation is the first LEED certified steel in North America. This is a steel finally designed by and engineered for planet Earth. Let's take a look at how this new, revolutionary steel will help construct the future.
Revolutions are rare, separated by hundreds of years, marked by a sharp, sudden change that alters the trajectory of the world. The American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the Technological Revolution. Let's forge them all into one. Steel once changed the world. Now the world is changing steel. For us to build a better future, it's time for new technology. Invented by scientists who care about the impact on the planet as much as the strength of their steel. Lighter, smarter alloy that can live forever, made at a fraction of the footprint than most metals. Because steel that lasts for generations only matters if the planet does too. Verdex, engineered for planet Earth.
Verdex, a name to express a global commitment to sustainable steel solutions. Verde, or green in the major Romance language, establishes a universally understood expression of sustainability, punctuated by the letter X to help convey U.S. Steel's commitment to technological innovation. The combination of the two creates a proprietary name that will help us clearly signal innovation in sustainable steel across the globe. "120 years ago this year, U.S. Steel changed the world forever. To celebrate, we're introducing a product that lets our consumers, customers, and our entire industry take action today. Join us in making sustainable steel solutions matter. Join us in helping customers discover how sustainable steel can fit into their solutions today. Join us in making the world a better place and keeping it that way. Because steel that lasts for generations only matters if the planet does too."
Rich, this sounds like a really exciting offering, and I wish you all the best in moving it to market. So thanks for sharing with us today. So in the 2 minutes we have left, I'd like to turn back to each of you for a closing comment. We've seen the industry here going through a major shift and beginning a process that we understand will take a while. So Anne Claire, closing comments, and then we'll turn to Rich.
I'll be brief, but I think the key thing for me is really that all the actors in the steel supply chain, from mining companies to end users, have to come together to help the industry reduce its footprint and drive towards net zero. And I really look forward to introducing responsible steel to the US market and maybe encouraging the kind of progress that US Steel is demonstrating today. And who knows, maybe make Big River the first responsible steel certified plant in America.
Rich?
Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Anne Claire. Obviously, we've taken some significant steps at US Steel with our 2030 goal and with the innovative steels that we're showing we can make at Big River Steel to bring consumers the steel that we all know we need in society, but also reducing carbon emissions in the process. But, as responsible steel shows, more needs to be done. So, we will continue to innovate, and we look forward to working with partners on this journey.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing today. Unfortunately, the session has run long enough that we won't have time for questions. But if there are members of the audience who do have questions and would like to follow up, I think my email will be made available, and we can certainly communicate directly on your behalf with Rich and Anne Claire. And once again, I thank you both for your expertise and your leadership, and look forward to working with both of you in the months and years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan.